letting go of unrealistic expectations, both your own and other people's, isn't about becoming indifferent. It's about becoming spiritually mature. And this is where the spirituality comes into it, because this is work. This is the work. Hello, and welcome to Spiritually Hungry.
Welcome. Happy to be spending this time with you.
That's nice.
We've had a very busy summer and a very busy day.
Yes, you're now in LA.
Yes.
It's a very fancy shirt you have on.
Thank you.
Alrighty, so now we are going to continue with our summer shorts, and
Snacks.
We're going to continue the conversation on great expectations. So I was thinking that I think the ratio, the percentages, we have roughly 80, I'm going to butcher the numbers. We have a lot of thoughts in a day. Something like 80,000, I don't know, a lot of different thoughts that go in and out of our heads throughout the day. And I think a lot of that time is spent on considering the things that we want and how they're going to look like, what they're going to feel like. We imagine them, we fantasize about them. And a lot of them are unspoken, mostly. And then these expectations are created with the people that we usually love the most, we expect the most from. So where we want to start with today is relationships, right? And those expectations we have on, again, the people that are most important to us.
Right. And I think, and I'm wondering, you know, with the word expectation and the way you framed it, it's almost like a thought out process, meaning I think my partner is going to behave like this towards me. I wonder if it's, again, I'm sure, you know, everybody has a different way of going about it. I wonder if it's that thought out, or it's almost like I didn't even have an expectation of what it would be, but not this, right? So you wake up in the morning and your partner, you know, you had plans, your partner cancels them, for example. Right. I think that the issue is it's not going the way you want it to go now. Rather, I think it would be even more helpful if you took a step back and said, how do I want my relationship to be? And what am I doing to go in that direction? I think my point is that I think rather than a whole plan that we have, for example, our relationships, and it doesn't go the way we want it to go, I think we have, you know, an upper conscious thought, relationships are going to be great all the time. Well, right? And then, when it doesn't happen, like when something disappointing happens to me, right? You know, I'm being clear.
But I think it depends on how emotionally intelligent a person is with themselves, right? So for instance, somebody like me, I give myself feedback throughout the day and I'm aware of those thoughts. Yeah. I consider them, I'm conscious of them, I'll challenge them. And so I'm having a ton of conversations throughout the day with myself.
It's funny, I don't really have those conversations. I'm probably not normal. So it's interesting.
Yeah, you're not in that regard. I think I've helped normalize you. But no, when we were first married, absolutely not. You've changed a lot in that area, but it's not.
But I'm not having conversations in my mind.
Yeah, but it's more like, okay, it's more action oriented. This is next. I'm going to do this next. You're not giving a lot of thought to how you feel in the process but anyway, let me just finish my point. Okay, sure. And then you can.
I just wanted to say one more thing to be clear, because I do think there is something positive here. And that is that when, yes, of course, I have a plan for my day. I have a plan for our relationship in some level. But when things happen, I hope, quick to embrace that as the best thing to be happening now.
Yeah, but that's a different idea. Yeah. That's quick to, I practice that as well. You're better at that than I am. But the idea of change and being flexible and going with the flow, 1,000%, that's not really what I'm saying. What I am saying is that, for instance, because I was thinking about what are the times where I get disappointed in our relationship, and they're petty things because thank God we have a healthy relationship. But I know that, for instance, if there was something in the fridge, like leftovers of something, right? And I didn't communicate to you that I wanted to eat that. But then all day long, let's say I was running around and I was starving and like and it had in my own thought, I'm going to get home. This is my expectation. I'm going to open the refrigerator. I'm going to eat that because it's easy. It's made and I'm starving. I haven't eaten enough today.
To clarify, that has never been communicated.
It was not communicated. And then I'll come home and you ate it, right? And I'll be like, devastated because I'm hungry, right?
And angry at me.
And then obviously the point is I'm aware of that. I'm like, this is ridiculous. It was an unspoken expectation. That's what I'm talking about. I think that's how we get into trouble. Or if we're going to go on a date night and we haven't talked a lot that day, or let's say that week for whatever reason, because we've been busy with crazy work and I really want to connect, but then we get to the restaurant, it's too loud, I'm not feeling connected. It's those, in my mind, how I imagine the evening to be was a certain way. And if it's not that, we get disappointed. Now, these are petty examples because, again, we are an emotionally intelligent couple. And I think that on the big things, we have trained ourselves to communicate our expectations before going forward with it. We're going to do this trip, or we're going to plan this event together. What my hope to get out of that is X, Y, and Z, and you'll share the same. So we're proactive about it. I don't think most couples do that. And I think they even get just stuck in the pettiness of it all, the day-to-day little things, because they're not clear with the relationship with themselves, and then they're not clearly expressing that.
Right.
So that's what I was saying.
Right. I think that's important, right? So it's hard to call them petty because probably most fights, most even big fights, are related to quote unquote something that begins as a small.
But the example of the leftovers, it's petty because thank God that we have means to go get food if we need, it's
right. But I say, because I think there's another category, right? Which is sort of the bigger thing where, let's say somebody wakes up 7 years into their marriage and they're like, oh my God, this is not the way I thought my relationship would exist 7 years in. We're not, I don't know, where we hardly see each other. We hardly even care to see each other, right? That, I think, right, that's the bigger and more difficult thing to fix.
Right. So I hear from couples very often, and I always still laugh to this day when I meet them.
Laugh at their pain?
No, I laugh at the statement that, I should understand this is not who I married. It's like, duh. Of course it's not who you married. Why would you expect that person to stay the same? And certainly you're not the same. The important thing is to be able to clearly communicate even your desires and hopes for who you want to be and where you want your life to go, even if it's embarrassing or you think it's unachievable or unattainable. There's one couple that comes to mind where I think she felt unseen or in the background, and that he kind of had the spotlight. And she was busy with the kids, but it was all by design. They chose these roles, right? But at some point, she got tired of it, and she started to find different hobbies and different things, and she stopped communicating, or maybe they never really communicated, but she wasn't communicating these changes. And she was getting more and more involved into different things and different relationships, friendships, what have you, to the point where the time that she came to have the conversation with him, she had already decided that she was done because she did all of that work now. She dealt with her disappointed feelings and her expectations that were not met. And she decided now that that's done and I've found something else. And she never gave that person a chance to even say, wait a second, I'm hearing you. I didn't know you were so dissatisfied with our relationship. Let's talk about it. Let's go to therapy. And she said, no, I'm done. And I see that happen a lot too, right? So we have all of these crazy expectations that are either expressed through complaining, which isn't effective, or they are repressed and then resentment is built and hurt, or you feel bad about yourself and you just decide to leave. And that's the danger with unspoken expectations. It's not that they're met or unmet. It's just that what's really happening here.
So yeah, I think what you touched upon, and I think four really important points, and I want to unpack them. So first you talked about change, right? And you said it quickly. I think it's a profound idea, which is very important for all of us to understand, certainly in relationships, right? This is not the person I married. You said, well, of course it's not, because everybody's changing all the time. But most people aren't conscious of that. And the person saying that also doesn't understand that they've changed, right? So many times, we'll meet people at different moments in their lives, and sometimes there's a long interlude between when we see them and we see them next. And we can often say, oh this person has changed. Now, sometimes it's a positive change, sometimes it's not such a positive change, but because it's, it's like that, I think it's anachronistic. I don't think it's true, but the frog in the boiling water, right? But the point is that we are all changing all the time.
The frog in the boiling water.
Right? They say that if you put a frog in water, in room temperature water, then you put the fire on, and the water temperature rises slowly, he'll just die and be cooked, because he never notices how the temperature. Rather, if you'd have thrown him into a boiling pot of water, he probably would jump out in a second. So the point is that we're all changing all the time.
Well, let's test that. I'm not sure that's
I don't want to test that. I don't think that's appropriate to a poor frog.
I'm curious.
But the point is that once you accept that you're always going to be changing and your partner's going to be changing, then you better be communicating.
Because, by the way, you might not even be aware of your own changes.
Of
Again,
course
it
not.
depends
You're
how
not. That's the point.
emotionally intelligent
The frog.
you are.
The frog.
But as soon as you start to recognize, hey, I'm feeling a little bit differently, or I'm feeling a little bit more disconnected or dissatisfied, or I'm curious about something else, I want to take this class. Do you want to try it with me? It's about really checking in anytime you notice, as you gave the example, a change in temperature.
Exactly. So I think that's the first part, the first thing you said, which I think is really, really important for our listeners to take in. You're in a relationship now, assuming it's a great relationship right now, know for certain you're going to be changing, your partner's going to be changing. And if throughout that change, you're not communicating, you're not welcoming each other into your changes, big or small, you're going to wind up like most people do. 5 years later, 7 years later, oh my God, this is not the person I married. And by the way, might not be saying this, and I'm not the same person who got married to them. Mm-hmm. But if you're more conscious of that, then you're much more open and focused on welcoming each other into the changes that you're absolutely going to be going through. That was the first thing you said, which I thought was very important. And the second, which I think again is related but also very important, that because we don't understand the gravity of what happens if you don't really welcome each other in to the changes. People let things go.
But do they really?
They don't, right? Exactly. But it's a buildup of resentment or of in their mind unmet expectations, but it's not communicated. How often have you seen that in the couples that you see, that they just are not, even though it's so obvious, and they'll talk to you about it for 5 hours, but they won't talk to their partner about it for 5 minutes. And the problem, and the point is, again, that is the ticking time bomb of relationships. And the third thing,
well, it's unspoken scripts that we all have, and it's a narrative that goes in loop in our own heads, and we're not really expressing it, and then we get disappointed when that person isn't meeting that story. And the story is probably based on things that happened earlier in your life, right? That's not even really about your partner at all, but you equate love to, making sure the house is clean when you get home, or that your stomach is full, and that's why there's different attachment styles and all of this. But I think just being able to expressing it and then pausing and say, wait a second, is it even fair for me to put this on the other person? Like, I see that in couples a lot too. They have this expectation, again, for the partner to do something because that's how they receive love, but the partner has no desire to ever do those things. It's not who they are. They can show love in different ways, but maybe not the way that you expect it.
Right. And that needs conversations, yes. Right? Both to express your expectations and to see maybe they're right or wrong, and maybe a partner can step up or not. It's interesting. Last night we were having dinner with a couple who's happily married, mm-hmm. and it's one of your great gifts. You were able to, in a very short time, touch upon, bring to the fore what is probably the greatest pain in their relationship right now, and your power to also be able to help them find a solution for it, which they hadn't thought of. But the point is that not this couple who's really happily married, but that situation in another couple, let that go for 3 years, 5 years, 7 years of resentment. There's no way the relationship is strong and thriving and beautiful. I'll
just add, though, by saying this is another interesting point. She said when we got up to leave the table, she was saying thank you and she's appreciative, but she said, this is the one thing we fight about all the time, because it's something that happened a year ago and it's really painful, and it keeps kind of having these different eruptions in their family dynamic. And what I love, and that's why they're a healthy couple, is they keep fighting about it because they know they have to get to the other side of it. And yes, they couldn't find the solution, but again, that's healthy. Like, people often ask me, we never talk about this, or do you think fighting is healthy? It's so important because it creates closeness, and they are trying to come together to figure out a solution. But I thought that was really interesting versus never speaking about it. Of course, it's,
Absolutely. And the last thing related to what you were saying is that I do think it's unfair.
You're such a good listener. You remembered everything I said.
What you say is profound. That I do strongly feel is unfair that when for a partner to get to that place without at least opening the door once or twice or three times. And, you know, it goes back to that question, when should a couple get divorced? Of course, divorce is sometimes the right solution, but it's almost always too soon. And that responsibility of, okay, I didn't talk about it for 7 years. Yes. And he was changing and I was changing, but what's my responsibility in this? Is there still a chance of regrouping, of really opening up a channel of communication? Whereas often it's like, no, I've changed, they've changed, we're no longer, compatible, done. I think that often happens too soon.
Yeah, there's so many steps before that. So you've both changed. What do you already have in common, and how can you build upon that change if you desire it? So to recap, I kind of just want to go through a quick list of what reasonable expectations are. So expecting someone to speak to you respectfully. Because, by the way, I think if we ask our listeners before I read this list, what are your we should probably do that. Write down what your expectations are.
Can I do this too?
Sure. In your relationship, and let's see if they're realistic or they're even where they should be. So push pause, write your list, and then listen again. Expecting someone to speak to you respectfully is a healthy, reasonable expectation. Expecting your spouse to stay loyal to you. Expecting a parent to provide basic emotional or physical care during childhood. Expecting a friend or family member to be honest with you. I would say, let's be careful with that word, but honest with kindness. So I would say authentic and vulnerable and true. And expecting follow through on clearly communicating agreements. You'd said you picked me up at 5, you weren't here, that type of thing. Why they're healthy? Because they're rooted in shared values and realistic capacities. They make room for human imperfection. They support accountability, but not control. And I think we didn't say that yet, but control is a really big one. And that's where people get disappointed a lot, because they're not willing to budge or lean in and see the person just as a person and not a means to their ends. And of course, it's not intentionally.
By the way, that you touched a thing that should be its own episode. But yes, but talk about that a little bit more, because you've seen it a lot. Yeah,
often. Again, I think children sometimes do this with parents, and we talked about this in last week's episode, that, okay, we are married, you have agreed to this, we're in this contract and we're sharing this life together. And my fantasy or my expectation from my wife or my husband was this, and you were not meeting that, so you're doing a poor job. Whereas you're not even looking at the person anymore. You're not considering about who they are as a whole person, why they came to this world, what their own needs are, what their desires are, and where they want to put their time and energy. Who says that they need to do these things for you because that's what you thought what your marriage would look like? It's if you look
because,
at
by the way,
ridiculous.
I know somebody who you're probably thinking about as well, is that, and they never communicated when they were dating.
No.
When they said, I love you, let's get married. By the way, you should know that these are 3 things that are really important. And it comes out of left field. And then they're in the marriage and they're resentful because then
the person's not happy. And exactly. And then you see where it leads to. I see it all the time.
Yeah. And so I think maybe, sorry, you have more on your list, but I think
those are all of the,
so maybe you can just get another minute on that point. Right, where I think it goes to the category of unrealistic expectations that people should work on letting go of.
So I'm going to tell you some of the unrealistic ones, okay? Because these are often, again, unspoken, and they're one-sided, and they're usually based on fantasy. It's something that we even dreamed up when we were a child. Like I see this with people planning their weddings. Like they dreamed they were going to have 300 people, and it was going to be this thing. And it's like, okay, great, I understand that, and I respect that.
But you have only 20 friends. If you want to be there.
Where are all these people coming from? Are we going to pay them?
It's very funny.
Why not spend the money on what you really want, which is travel and exploration? Because that's or your home, right? But because you had that fantasy, we get into all these things anyway. So this is unrealistic. Expecting someone to always understand what you need without telling them. Expecting your parent or child to never change, age, grow, or need something different. That's a big one. Expecting others to prioritize your happiness above their own well-being. All the time, I see that. Expecting someone to always agree with you, never disappoint you, or behave perfectly. Now, that one I want to say,
unless you're married to Monica,
those definitive words, those very specific, like always, never, perfectly. You got to remove those from any kind of thought process of what you want from somebody else. That's just not going to happen. Why they're harmful? Because they create resentment, disappointment, and guilt, because the person can feel guilty. I never make you happy. They often lead to miscommunication and unnecessary conflict, and they place the responsibility for your emotional state in someone else's hands. And that's a big one too. So letting go of unrealistic expectations, both your own and other people's, isn't about becoming indifferent. It's about becoming spiritually mature. And this is where the spirituality comes into it, because this is work. This is the work.
Beautiful. And I think we should actually do the next episode continuing on this topic, because I think it's so important, especially from all of your experience with couples. This is really the Achilles heel. That is the seed for the ruin of so many loving couples. So I hope that we've inspired our listeners to really take the time to think about their relationship and their expectations, said and unsaid, and what more importantly, what can you actively do today to start fixing? Because we all have this. Every single relationship will have some of these, time bombs in the relationship. Address it. In the summer, maybe you're on vacation with your partner, maybe you're spending more time with them. Like, really take the time, because like you always say, love is not enough. That's the saddest part. Sometimes you see couples that, they were never really in love and they have these issues of expectations. Okay, that's sad, but not terrible. But then when you have a couple that was really in love and they really love each other, but because they didn't do this work of both understanding their own unrealistic expectations that aren't communicated, allow a loving relationship to not really
interesting.
become
There's two different couples I've worked with, one for years and years and one more recently, but they've broken up and gotten back together. The first couple 3 times, the second couple probably 5 times, but they're not married, but back and forth, back and forth. I'm like, listen, you clearly can't live without each other. So listen to these words, like, make it work. It's not that hard. We've identified the issue. Just do the work to make it, because they literally, they cannot be apart. They really love each other. And it works. It works in all areas except the unrealistic expectations, which is really, ego based, right?
Well, I'm really excited for our listeners to hear this episode and hopefully be inspired to do the work that you spoke about. Happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary.
I hope our listeners enjoyed listening to this podcast as much as we enjoyed recording it. Continue to share this podcast with everybody you know. Write 5-star reviews on Apple Podcast. Send Monica and I questions, comments, topic ideas, anything and everything, inspirations to Monica and Michael at spirituallyhungry.life. Monica and Michael at spirituallyhungry.life. And I hope you enjoyed listening to this podcast as much as we enjoyed spending this time together and recording it.
Stay spiritually hungry.